Welcome to episode 27 of Pulse of Physiology. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Davis, and today we're diving into the molecular mechanism that drives muscle contraction, cross-bridge cycling. This process is at the heart of the sliding filament theory, where myosin heads repeatedly attach to actin filaments, pulling them toward the center of the sarcomere and shortening the muscle fiber. In our next episode, we'll explore the different muscle fiber types and their roles in various types of movement and endurance. But for now, let's break down cross-bridge cycling step by step. Now, before cross-bridge cycling can begin, calcium ions must enter the sarcoplasm. This occurs through two key channels. First, we have the voltage-gated calcium channels, known as DHP receptors. These are located on the sarcolemma and are activated by an action potential. These channels allow an influx of calcium. Then there are the mechanical-gated ryanodine receptors. These are found on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and these channels open in response to DHP receptor activation, release stored calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum into the sarcoplasm. Once calcium is available, it binds to troponin, which causes tropomyosin to move out of the way, exposing myosin binding sites on actin. This allows the myosin heads to attach and initiate cross-bridge cycling. You can think of this relationship as me when it comes to my daughter's dating life. I am tropomyosin, my wife is troponin, my daughter is actin, and the dumb boy is myosin. I am preventing actin and myosin from getting together. In other words, I'm preventing my daughter from going on a date with a dumb boy. However, my wife, when she realizes the boy is not so dumb, she moves me out of the way. And so then actin and myosin can get together and go on their date. Now, cross-bridge cycling follows a repetitive sequence that allows muscle fibers to contract effectively. And this process can be broken down into four key steps. Step 1, cross-bridge formation, when myosin binds to actin. At the start of the cycle, myosin is in what we call its cocked position, with ADP and phosphate bound to the myosin head. When calcium exposes the myosin binding sites on actin, the myosin head forms a strong cross-bridge by binding to actin. Step 2, the power stroke. Once myosin binds to actin, phosphate is released, which strengthens the bond between myosin and actin. This triggers the power stroke, where the myosin head pivots and pulls the actin filament towards the M line, remember that's the middle, of the sarcomere. This movement increases the overlap between actin and myosin, effectively shortening the sarcomere and generating tension in the muscle. Step 3, the rigor state, or tight binding of myosin and actin. Following the power stroke, ADP is released, causing myosin and actin to bind even more tightly together. This rigor state is a natural part of the contraction process and is the same mechanism responsible for rigor mortis after death, when ATP is no longer available to detach myosin from actin. Step 4, cross-bridge detachment. This is when ATP binds to myosin. To break the strong actin-myosin bond, ATP binds to the myosin head. This binding causes a conformational change in myosin, reducing its affinity for actin and allowing the two filaments to separate. Step 5, the myosin head reset, which occurs due to ATP hydrolysis. Once ATP binds, ATPase activity in the myosin head hydrolyzes ATP into ADP and phosphate. This releases energy that recocks the myosin head into its high energy state. If calcium is still available, the process repeats, continuing muscle contraction. Now, for successive contractions and continuous cross-bridge cycling, three components must remain available. First, acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is needed to maintain the action potential that stimulates calcium release. 2, calcium. Calcium is required to keep troponin activated and tropomyosin out of the way. 3, ATP. ATP is essential for myosin detachment from actin and resetting the myosin head. If any of these components become unavailable, cross-bridge cycling will slow or stop, leading to muscle relaxation. Muscle relaxation begins when the action potential stops, leading to a cascade of events. The DHP receptor closes, which reduces calcium release from the T-tubules. The ryanodine receptor on the sarcoplasmic reticulum closes, which stops further calcium release. Calcium is actively pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum by SERCA, the sarcoendoplasmic reticulum calcium ATPase pump. This pump reduces calcium levels in the sarcoplasm. With less available calcium, troponin releases calcium, causing tropomyosin to move back over the myosin binding sites on actin, preventing further cross-bridge cycling. As fewer cross bridges form, muscle tension decreases and the muscle fiber returns to its resting state. Now, understanding cross-bridge cycling can help explain many physiological and pathological conditions. For example, muscle fatigue can occur when ATP or calcium availability is reduced, slowing down cross-bridge cycling. As I mentioned previously, there's the condition of rigor mortis. This occurs when ATP is no longer produced after death, preventing myosin from detaching from actin. And then there are other myosin-related disorders. Mutations in myosin proteins can lead to conditions like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which ultimately affect heart muscle contraction. So let's summarize with our key takeaways. Cross-bridge cycling is the fundamental process driving the sliding filament theory and muscle contraction. The cycle consists of cross-bridge formation, the power stroke, rigor state, detachment, and myosin head resetting. ATP is essential for breaking actin-myosin bonds and recocking the myosin head for the next cycle. Muscle relaxation occurs when calcium is actively pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum, leading to reduced cross-bridge formation. And with that, we're done with episode 21 of Pulse of Physiology. I hope this episode has provided a clear and thorough understanding of cross-bridge cycling. Join me next time where we'll discuss muscle fiber types and their adaptations for strength, endurance, and speed. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay curious.